Hi, welcome to a new video. Today we're gonna talk about Carlos D, bass player of Interpol. Interpol emerged from the post-punk revival of the 2000s, and they're one of the main bands associated with the New York indie rock scene. Their style is often compared to bands such as Joy Division and Television, and their debut album Turn On the Bright Lights was critically acclaimed, leading the way to their commercial success. The original bass player Carlos Dangler, or Carlos D, on top of being considered the face of the band, played an important role in crafting their sound for over a decade. In 2010, he famously left Interpol, stating that the reason for his departure was the fact he didn't like playing bass. Now that's quite a thing. From a stylistic standpoint, Interpol do remind me of Joy Division and The Cure, and like their main inspirations, their sound features simple but characteristic bass lines. The first thing we need to discuss is the tone. Dangler played almost exclusively a Fender jazz bass through an Ampeg SVT and didn't use any pedals. As classic as it gets. Interpol primarily used the drop D tuning with a low E string lowered to D and wrote the majority of their songs in the keys of D and B minor. On top, Carlos relies mainly on down picking, normally right over the bridge pickup, bringing that typical jazz bass gritty attack. If you listen to his isolated bass, you can tell it's pretty much a straight jazz bass sound with only some minimal EQ. Besides a very basic setup, Dangler's trademark grounded and stylized bass lines are marked by strident staccato bursts, probably coming from one of his biggest influences, Duran Duran's John Taylor. When she walks down the street, though staccato is a common technique amongst finger players, it's not that usual to hear it with a pick. You know exactly how I feel. Also, slower songs like Rest My Chemistry have a distinct rhythm quality due to the staccato notes of the bass, which holds up the song with an hypnotic bass line made only of 3 notes. On Obstacle 1, the bass is the cornerstone of the verse, anything else is just playing chords. This is a typical feature of the music of Interpol, where the guitars mainly rely on chords, and like in the case of The Cure, leave a lot of space for the bass. That's the main reason why Carlos' bass lines stand out so much despite being so simple. The bass provides the real pulse of the songs. Through the aging, the fearing, the strife. It's the smiling. One big difference with Simon Gallup though is that to do that, Carlos often relies on good old 8th notes, especially during the choruses. On top of providing the backbone for the songs with his steady pulse, Carlos also used octave jumps, almost in a disco-like fashion. As we said before, in the music of Interpol, the guitars often provide steady chords, in many cases acting like a pedal tone, leaving the bass alone to carry the melodic duties of the song. You're so cute when you're frustrated. On Obstacle 1, the bass starts out extremely high, and when it drops to its usual low register, it creates a very powerful moment. Tension is released and it makes the song feel very dramatic. Once the bass drops to its lower register, it continues to be a source of tension, this time in its use of unpredictable and nervous rhythmic patterns in the verse. Just like Simon Gallup, in many cases, Carlos uses the Aeolian or natural minor scale to match the minor tonalities of most of Interpol's music. At times, he pulls out some really cool arpeggios, my favorite being the intro of The New. As it's so common in Interpol songs, the coda of The New is a song in itself. In this case, the bass commits to a steady pattern, while the guitars move around, playing dissonant chords, plunging the song into sonic chaos. Brilliant. Carlos D was an integral part of the band, and he was described by many as its most infamous member. His style was simple and solid, and despite its simplicity, he inspired thousands of musicians to pick up a bass. And this is all I had to say about Carlos D and Interpol. Thank you for watching, don't forget to leave a comment and follow me on Instagram.